and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Brian and Oscar and Drew. Good to have you guys. Before we get started with the podcast today, we'll be discussing the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching and how it relates to our recovery. I do want to mention one benefit that you can find at buddyc.org. That's sober meditations. Back during the pandemic, I recorded, I think there's over 400 meditations there that actually I recorded much less, and you have the same meditation in a 5-minute version that's cut down, and a 10-minute version that has all the content, and then a 20-minute version with longer pauses. It actually gets more downloads a month than the podcast does, which amazes me because I just thought something to do during the pandemic and it could be helpful. So there's 9 meditations on each step. There's other meditations there. I use it when I'm working with a sponsee, and let's say we're going to work the first step. I ask them to listen to all first step meditations in the 10-minute format so they get all the content, and then we talk about the first step. This is just bite-sized ways at that time, which was in 21. It's coming up on 4 years, actually, that I did this. How I worked with a sponsee at that time. And of course, that keeps evolving. How I saw the higher power at that time, which has evolved since then. So that's just a snapshot at that time of how I just want to take the things I learned and put them into bite-sized pieces, really to help me work with sponsees and for anyone else that it might help. And it's obviously used by a lot of folks. So try not to talk about those things much, but I feel the need. There it is. It's free. It's an app, actually. So
I'll say I really like using it. One of the ways that I use it is I'll go to the gym and exercise, and then I'll go into the sauna and listen to a few of the 10-minute meditations. I really like those. Yeah. And you, like you said, you don't bring it up much.
Yeah, I get a lot of. It's funny. I'll get 4-star reviews. This is great. This is great. One said they use it to open their AA meeting with. Do it like a 5 or 10 minute, the first of the meeting. I'm like, wow, I never would have thought that. When I get a bad review, first thing I do is shoot to that review. What did they say bad about this? Yeah. And there was one that did you get people that do this, like a 1-star review for some odd ass reason. And I comment on all of them. Thank you. And that one, I just said, bless him, Jesus. I gave him a bless him, Jesus. But do you know what that means, Oscar? Do you know what bless him, Jesus means?
I don't think I know what it means now.
There's a few different ways you could translate that. You could translate it, you dumbass. Probably is the most, that's my meaning when I say it. Oh, God, this guy, you can't fix stupid, right?
Blank you.
Yeah, well, not that bad, Brian.
Okay, not
I
there.
want to insult them. I don't want to just tell them off. I want to insult in the tell-off. That's funny. I'm doing that with sober meditations, right? Man, I'm still sick. Before we get into the 73rd verse, I've been thinking this week about one thing we talked about last week, and I want to being Oscar's here this week, and he studies Course in Miracles. I want to get his take on this. Oscar, we talked about the table as not being in Course in Miracles the first month in January. They talk about, by the way, I believe there's a link to the calendar that I put together for Course in Miracles with all the dailies in the episode notes. I'll get that in the notes if it's not there already. First month in January, it's all these, this is not real, that's not real, all that, changing the way we look at what we see. And I said, how can the table not be real when it's there? I see the table. I can tap on the table. Why is it not real? And I believe it's not real in the way that the table does not possess my solution, nor is it the cause of my problems. And I thought this week, I thought we had a good conversation about that last week. And I said, oh, alcohol's a table. It's a symptom of the problem. It's not the problem. In that way, it's not real. I thought that was an excellent conversation last week about that. Oscar, any comments on that? I know you study Course in Miracles. How do you see the table? I'm just curious, or physical things.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Huh? The one you mentioned also resonates with me. That the fact that it's more like the table doesn't have any meaning. So the meaning I give it is not a meaning it has of itself. And that's the same with alcohol or substances or whatever external thing there is. There is no meaning in itself. So all meaning, everything is neutral. So the whole world is neutral until I give it meaning. And I give it meaning. Who is the I? Is the voice of my ego or the voice of my thoughts, and it projects truth outside of myself. So that's one kind of way I think. And the other way is purely based on physics. The table is not a table, it's just energy, like me. And when you break it all down to molecules and atoms and protons and neutrons, there's a lot of space between all those electrons and neutrons. And science decided that's not the smallest part of it. So electrons and neutrons are not electrons and neutrons. They exist of smaller parts, and they try to find out what that is. So if you have smaller parts with a lot of space in between it, in everything, it comes very close to being nothing, right? Because it's empty then. And then it's nothing. So
Oh, sorry.
still we exist in this world and we see things and we think it's real, but where A Course in Miracles resonates really with deep truth inside me, I recognize that this is all a dream. Our lives is a dream. And when I truly come back to the present moment, there is everything comes and goes at the same time. Only because we have time, like a bigger picture of time, more than a present moment, we think things last or things are gone, but when there is no past and there is no future and there's just this, what has any reality then? So that's pretty close to a dream. So those are my 2 cents, but it's a thing that is hard to grasp and hard to catch in words. But for me, it was really a revelation that a table is not a table.
Thank you, Oscar. Much better way of saying it than we tried last week. I like that the table has no meaning, that my issues are not caused by the table or anything external of me, nor is my solution anything external of me. Neither. So that's why we learn in recovery that alcohol or our drug of use is just a symptom. It is not the problem. I'm sure we all came into recovery just wanting to. I know I just speak for me. I came into AA thinking alcohol was my problem. I'm here to either learn how to. I knew I couldn't drink like anyone else. I knew I had to stop altogether, and I couldn't. So that's what my problem is that I'm drinking, and I need to stop drinking. What are you here for? I say, I'm here to remove all the fears that have controlled my life. No. You come and say, no, I'm here to quit whatever. When in reality, that's not it. Because if you just quit, then you're still going to be very miserable because you're not an alcoholic or an addict because of how you feel when you're using. is because of how you feel when you're not using. That's why you are an addict or alcoholic. Thank you, Oscar, for putting some clarification on that. 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. Let's do our normal readings if we can. Drew, can we start with you with Stephen Mitchell?
Of course. Verse 73. The Tao is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. Its net covers the whole universe, and though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through.
Thank you, Drew. Oscar, you have Jonathan Starr handy?
Yes, I have verse 73. Bold action against others leads to death. Bold action in harmony with the Tao leads to life. Good fortune, bad fortune. One seems to bring benefit, the other to cause harm. But heavens rejects them both. Both, in the end, tether man to this world. Who can know the reason of heaven? Who can know its endless ways? Not even the sage has an answer to this one. Heaven's way does not strive, yet it always overcomes. It does not speak, yet it responds. It is not summoned, yet it appears. It does not hurry, yet it completes everything on time. The net of heaven spans the universe, yet not the slightest thing ever slips by. Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar. Brian, you want to read Derek Lynn for us?
Glenn? Yeah, sure. The bold and daring will be killed. The bold and not daring will survive. Of these two, one may benefit, the other may harm. The one hated by heaven, who knows the reason? Even the sages still find this difficult. The Tao of heaven does not contend and yet excels in winning, does not speak and yet excels in responding, is summoned and yet comes on its own, is unhurried and yet excels in planning. The heavenly net is vast, loose and yet does not let anything slip through. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. I really like Jonathan Starr today. I'm going to go ahead and read my interpretation of the 73rd verse. I was fortunate enough to pen during the pandemic just an interpretation of the Tao Te Ching. You can get a free copy via PDF at buddyc.org if you'd like. All is as it should be. I hate that phrase. I would probably name it something different now. All of the plans of men are feeble when compared with the Tao. The Tao does not strive or compete, yet it excels. The Tao does not ask, yet it is supplied with all its needs. Slow, patient, calm, relaxed, unhurried, always at ease, yet able to accomplish any task. The mesh of heaven's net is large, yet nothing slips through. Yeah, let's use Jonathan Starr today as a guide. Bold action against others leads to death. Bold action in harmony with the Tao leads to life. Both are bold action, right? Let me look and see if it's the same action, the same exact Chinese words. Yes, same words. It appears to be describing, it's using the same words to describe the action. Derek Lynn said bold and daring. The bold and daring will be killed. The bold in not daring will survive. I think that's just effortless effort. If your effort is against others, or if your effort is in harmony with the Tao.
And self-centered versus selfless.
Yes. We think about, or I hear this a lot, you can't do nothing. You're talking about effortless effort is just doing nothing. So, no, it's effort. Actually, it's more difficult than just selfishly spinning my wheels. The same with in recovery, it's more difficult for me to surrender and let go. That is much, for me, that's much harder work than me just giving in and trying to run the show. The consequences are different for both, but both are action. Brian?
Buddy, for me, I was thinking about step 3 and talking about surrendering my will. That's what I see in this. Because if I'm not ready to surrender my will, the harder it gets, the more I'm going to double down. And I'm going to ride that ship as it's sinking.
You're going to keep rearranging the deck chairs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to be up front with my bucket throwing water out as she's going down. So
That reminds me of in the movie Titanic, the violin players were there playing the violin on the deck as it was starting to go down. That's what you're talking about.
yeah.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. It's a big difference between both verses, or translations, I should say.
Yeah. Oscar?
Yeah, I had this nice conversation with my wife this week. She is listening to the podcast you suggested about what's a Tao all about.
Yes.
So she listens to this every day. And she also did Tao of Everyday Living a while ago, which is also every verse and how you can apply it to your daily life. And it was a really wonderful conversation where we ended up with the question, what if from tomorrow on you wake up and you can live and you live in complete harmony with the Tao? What would what would your life look like then? And the answer is still you do the same thing. You do the things you do because you have work and you have children and you have your friends and you have your obligations and you have all the things you do, you just do them. But there is no heaviness in it anymore. It's just very light. It's complete acceptance, really complete acceptance of everything. And there is a bright kind of joy in it, in everything. So when I read bold action against others leads to death, it's not in harmony with the Tao, but it's like kind of fighting through your life, fighting through the day. It's the same difference as going through my day or letting the day go through me. The day and the seasons, and they will all go through me. I'm going with them. It's just what's going. It's just how it goes. Or am I going through it? And then I'm fighting. And when I'm fighting, I have my judgments, I have my opinions, I have my analysis. And this all leads to death in the sense that, yeah, one day I'm going to die. It's quite literally. And then all of it is gone. When I live in the spirit, there is no death because I'm living in spirit. And when I live in spirit, I live in complete harmony with the Tao. And then, oh, it's all kind of living in wonder and beauty and contentment. What do you say? How do you say it's in English? Simple way, the simple way of living. Really one step at a time, really slow, no hurry, no going from that point to that point because you want to be on the points, but just completely in the present moment. And this is all quite possible, right? It's not like then, okay, so that is what living in harmony with the Tao is. That's too difficult for me. Why is it too difficult? It's not difficult at all. So something inside me makes it very difficult. And that's real, yeah, vicious power of ego, mind. The ego is not a devil, it's not an entity, it's nothing at all. It's just patterns of thought, but still it's really strong. And and if I'm gonna fight that, I'm lost also. If I'm gonna fight the ego, I'm lost. So stop fighting. Still, yeah, okay. Stop fighting is the answer. Stop fighting, and we live in harmony with the Tao.
Thank you, Oscar. We can only do that in this present moment. At first, I thought about my whole day, and I can't think of the whole day just like I can't think about my whole life. And I can narrow that down to I want to walk in fear or death in this moment. Or do I want to walk in virtue or day, which is what the Tao Te Ching is describing, we think, is the way of virtue, which the title would lend to that translation. So are we going to walk in virtue or are we going to walk in fear? And that twisted me up until I realized, number one, it wasn't this lofty love thing or this ominous ego thing. If I broke it down to the moment, for me, and Course in Miracles talks about this too, I am here only to be helpful. So in this moment, not how can I show, I can say, how can I show that person love? I can get really big worded about it or spiritual, whatever, how you want to frame it, but I lose it when I go that route. But if I just ask, how can I be helpful in this moment? That's all I need to do. If I'm helpful in more moments of the day, then I'm walking in what you're talking about, Oscar. Thank you. Drew?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the hearing about the mental exercise that Oscar and his wife went through. Just thinking about what would life be like if you lived in harmony with the Tao every day. And one thing that came up for me is I wouldn't be wishing that anything was different than what it is. And I know in my life that's what has gotten me in trouble throughout my whole life, really, is wishing I didn't feel the way I was feeling right now, wishing I could feel a different way, wishing I had something I don't have, wishing I didn't have something I do have, wishing for this, wishing for that, thinking my life would be better, I'd feel better right now if only this were in my life or this weren't in my life. And that'll often lead me to taking actions that are leading towards escaping from something or trying to bring something that I really don't need, but I think I do. And that just leads to compounding problems onto compounding problems. But like Oscar said, if we can just live in the present and accept what is and go about our responsibilities and just be with the people we're with, have fun when it's time to have fun, work when it's time to work, rest when it's time to rest. Life goes so much better than always looking for how things could be better. So I really like that exercise, and I'm going to try to incorporate that exercise into my life a little bit more.
Thank you, Drew. Let's read that next phrase because it helps shape what we're talking about. Good fortune, bad fortune. One seems to bring benefit and the other seems to cause harm. But heaven rejects them both. Both in the end tether men to this world.
I think that kind of ties into the table metaphor that we've been talking about. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. It's just how we look at it through our lens. So something is good fortune if it gives us something that we want, and something is bad fortune if it gives us something we don't want. So that just comes back to our wanting things, like I was saying, wanting things to be different than they are, or wanting things to continue being the same when it's time for them to change. So yeah, I think that kind of ties into what we were talking about with the table.
Yeah, one seems to bring benefit, one seems to bring harm. Tao rejects both, and both tether men to the world. Oscar?
It seems to bring benefit or it seems to cause harm is always so short term. It's just, okay, I need this or I want this or I don't want this because it's bad news or I want this because it's good news. For what? I have complete lack of any form of a bigger picture than I need this now because I like it. And that's insanity, man. That's insane. That's really where my insane behavior comes from. Because I want to feel good. I want to have it. I don't want to feel my fears. I want this, I want that. That's where my mind goes wa- way beyond truth or reality, or really on its own, really in my own will. We don't know what anything is good for, right? We don't know anything.
And holding on to those opinions, Oscar, tether us to this world. Who can know the reasons of heaven? Who can know its endless ways? Not even the sage has an answer to this one. I think that's asking the question, why? Why did this happen? Why? Why this? Why that? I hear it most of the time tied to God. If God was real, why did this happen? Kind of thing.
Why do bad things happen to good people?
Why do good things happen to bad people?
Why do
That's the
good
thing I
things
want to know.
happen to bad people?
Drew, that's what I was just thinking about.
Uh,
Back in my church days, they did a study on that book, and my first thought was this ought to be good. Hearing somebody explain this one, and but yeah, buddy, that's true.
That's the one I go negative. That's the one I want to know. All these efforts having good things. Why is that?
There you go. You've been in my head.
You know, it goes back to either one is tethering us to this world. And tether, of course, I think is a negative, that they're tied to this world and you can't be free. And both, for me, have an origin in fear. Because if I wasn't putting expectations, and Drew, I wrote down acceptance when you were talking too. If I'm not accepting this moment as it is and I'm attaching expectations as to, oh, this is a good thing, or oh, this is bad. What usually bad's followed by what did I do wrong? Why am I being punished? Used to be the way I would think about it, rather than it just is, even in the middle of very perceived bad things. Because we find our peace is not in the situation being good or bad. My peace, which I've experienced, is in accepting this moment, just this moment, as it is. And once I do that, I can have peace in the moment. We're talking about moment by moment living, is what we're talking about. Because as long as I'm going outside of the moment, looking into the future, or let me say it this way. As long as I'm living outside of the moment, then my peace and joy is gone. If I'm living outside of this moment, I think that's the difference, living in or out of the moment. Because anytime my fear comes along, it's a situation I don't like, I spin out of the moment. I go to, this is going to happen and this, what about this? And I'm gone. So I'm out of the time that I can actually experience love, Tao, compassion, any of those things outside of when I can either be compassionate or be helpful or receive help. That can only happen in this moment. Yeah. Thank you. Drew?
yeah, I had an opportunity to put that into practice consciously a few days ago. I went to the rec center after work and played pickleball with our just pickup games. Whoever shows up, we play with. I was the first one there, and the next three to come in who joined me were all the youngest ones, probably 77, 78. So I was playing with people in their late 70s to mid 80s. And then the next few people who showed up are all guys my age or younger who are really good. And I really wanted to play with them. I didn't want to play with the people, the older crew, and they were really annoying me. And I snapped at one of them a little, and she said, "Are you upset right now? Is everything okay?" And I felt really bad about it, and I said, "Oh, my back's acting up. I'm sorry." And at that moment, I thought I can choose how to be right now. And I don't want to choose to be somebody who's snapping at my older friends. I've known them for several years now, and I really like them, and they're really sweet. And I thought I don't want to be that way. But what am I doing right now? I'm playing this game with these three people who I really enjoy playing with. I'm helping them out. I'm hitting it back to them so they can hit it, so we can make the games go longer and we can all have a good time together. And I'm getting some exercise and being with my friends right now. And there will be other games to play later with those other guys, but what am I doing right now? Right now, I'm choosing to enjoy playing this game. I'm seeing it as a little bit of a service I'm providing to them, and I'm having fun with my friends. Getting out of wishing things were different, wishing I were playing with somebody else, wishing that these players I was with were better or could remember the score or remember who served last. Just getting back to present moment and remembering why I'm here, and getting that little helpfulness mindset. The light switch just turned on, and I was a completely different person. I was more joyful. I was laughing. I was a pleasure to be around. So when I can consciously put this stuff into practice, I know it really makes a difference. I saw that a few days ago.
Thank you, Drew. It's amazing that your peace and joy was not in the situation. It was not in the table, was it?
Mm-mm.
Who you were playing with had no meaning, as Oscar would say. No meaning spiritually to what was going on. That's good. Yeah, we need to stay out of the why question. I never ask the why. Life is life. We think just because we're living a more compassionate, useful life, no matter how we're used or to what degree, it's still life. And life is a mix of all things. What's the Bible verse about that? That the rain falls on the just and the unjust? I don't know a better way to describe it. So life's going to bring things, Brian.
Buddy, for me, it all comes down to my acceptance of life on life's terms. That's it. And that can be difficult sometimes.
We're never taught that, Brian. We're never taught acceptance ever. That I was never taught acceptance. I only started experiencing acceptance through some very difficult things
Mm-hmm.
in recovery. I had a sponsee. I'm working with a new sponsee, and I explained to him, and I'd never seen it this way or explained it this way because I thought it was pretty good. I said, if you're praying to grow spiritually, what do you think's going to happen? You think that when do you learn? I learn when things are difficult, when I have crisis to go through. So if you're learning, if you're praying to desiring, you know where I'm going, Oscar, you're grinning. So if you're desiring to grow spiritually, guess what? You're asking for shit to happen. That's what you're doing. Because that's when you learn. That's when I learn. There's,
All them bumps in the road.
yeah, I had a old friend in AA, Jim W. He liked to quote I think it's as Bill sees it when it says, when things are difficult, we're learning. When things are easy, we're grateful. I said, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Mm.
I said, so as long as you want to grow spiritually, guess what? You're asking for shit to happen. It's what you're asking for. Now, whether that influences it or not, I don't know. It seems to. That seems to be the alignment, which we're fixing to get into the providence part, the alignment of things, of the path. Heaven's way does not strive, yet it always overcomes. It does not speak, yet it responds. It is not summoned, yet it appears. It does not hurry, yet it completes everything in time. The net of heaven spans the universe, yet not the slightest thing ever slips by.
That reminds me a little of what I heard Brian say before the meeting started about how it's starting to actually get to be winter now, and the frost is coming, whether we want it to or not. It's here, and we don't have any control over it. It's coming on its own terms, coming on its own time. It's not trying to be here, it just is.
I never like seeing winter come. I would love for it to be summer all the time. I love shorts and barefooted everywhere, flip flops in the car so that when I leave the house, I have shoes to wear. I'll leave them in the car. And I'll put on some boots if I'm, put on some shoes if I'm mowing grass or something. But other than that, I'm, live in the South, been born and raised here. That's how we do. So I enjoy that. But I have to accept when it comes time for change. It takes me a few days too. I fight it at first. Those first few days, by God, I'm wearing my shorts again today. And then I start freezing. I get consequences, and okay, then I'll change, But I don't like it. I know exactly what you mean, Drew. Heaven's way. What do y'all see that as being? Some would say that's God calling the shots. Some would say that there's purpose behind everything, and that's the purpose, that there's a plan, and this plan is being enacted. And I don't criticize any way of looking at these things because I've said before that it's just our own God language and our own path and our own walk. So I'm not going to criticize someone else's because I can't compare my walk to someone else's walk. It's not possible because it's different. Drew?
Yeah, the first thing that kind of comes to my mind about what heaven's way is, especially when applied to my own life, is my internal nature when I get out of the way. When I, like Oscar talked about at the beginning, about what would it be like to just live in harmony with the Tao every day. That's living in heaven's way to me. That's when I get out of the way, heaven's way appears before me.
Could you say heaven's path?
That's definitely, that's what I was picturing mentally when I said that was a path. So when I stop trying to forge my own path and see that the path is already laid out before me, not wishing that this path was different, without being envious of the path somebody else is on. Everybody's on their own path, and if I can stay on that path that heaven has set out before me, that leads to the feelings of internal peace and calmness and joy that I think that I can find by forging my own path. But that path's already there. I just got to get out of my way and let the dust settle in the water. What are those other metaphors?
Let go of what we have so we can grasp the new thing coming. Let the mud settle so the right answer will appear by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, too, that it says always overcomes. The first thing we think of following a path of the Tao is that it never overcomes, right? It always overcomes. The path is what causes the overcoming, not the one walking it. And then it's got a lot of knots that we don't do. We don't strive. We don't speak in that we don't exert our opinion, I think, would be probably a way to look at that. I don't have to inject me into every conversation, right? Then things start changing. I'm able to be on the path I'm able to be where I need to be at the moment rather than having to be pulled to that moment as in summoning. Oscar?
I think heaven's way is just the way everything is, right? So that's it. And we live in a kind of delusional state that we have any influence on this, but it's not the way it is, because when I come on a crossroads and I have a choice to make. I go left or I go right. Is there really a choice?
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because everything happens as it happens. So when I go right and I think, oh no, I go left anyway, and then I go back left, then that's the way it happens. When I don't think about it, I just go right, I go right. It happens as it happens, and that is heaven's way.
Does not hurry. The path does not hurry, yet it completes everything on time. If I'm on this path, and so many times I think I get anxious about what needs to be done. This needs to be done today. This has got to be, blah, 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 blah. But yet it all is completed on time. Looking back, I can see that. The net of heaven spans the universe. The path encompasses all things, yet not the slightest thing ever slips through. In other words, there's no mistakes on the path. I think maybe a way to look at that. Every step is on the path, maybe another way it's described. Oscar?
Yeah, in the big book it says God is everything or it's nothing,
Yes.
and acceptance was the solution. And that's the same thing, I think. Yeah, it's everything. So everything is everything, and everything is a part of everything. So there's nothing else but that.
And
Yeah.
really, if death is part of the moment, it's just what the moment brings. So it's nothing special.
No, nothing is special. It's just everything.
And it's all this moment, too. Just moment by the wave of the moment is how I. Let me ask y'all about this one. Okay. We think there was a big bang. Everything of the universe was compressed down. What happened after this big bang, from what I understand, what our current understanding is, maybe a way to say it, it all expands, starts expanding, expanding, expanding. Billions of years ago, it expands, continues to expand. Now we understand that it expands and contracts a little, expand like a wave, just keeps going all the time. It's only one expansion, only one. So there's no other to compare it to, only one universe. So we have nothing else to compare it. We can't say, oh, there should have been a quasar there when there was a sun or whatever. We can't judge it as being different than what it is. So we're part of that constant expansion. Our lives are. In a smaller way, our life is that expansion too. And it seems to be the universe is not expanding so that it can die. The universe, from the one big bang, is expanding to flourish. It's what it seems to me. If that wasn't the case, none of us would be here, because everything seems to be about flourishing. And from what I read and what I'm becoming to experience, the way that I participate in that expansion is through this walk of virtue. That virtue allows me to be involved in this expansion to the fullest extent possible. So when I choose to be helpful instead of choose to be selfish or dishonest or resentful, act on fear, I can more fully expand. And the results usually are expansion things. Usually the result overall is I live a peaceful life no matter what is going on. And the circumstances seem to work out in a positive manner, but not always. But you learn that the person's peace and joy doesn't entirely depend on the result. It depends on their acceptance of whatever is in this moment. We seem to tie it to whatever. Oh, this a person's successful, so they must be doing something right. They have money, so they're doing something right. Or they have good fortune with their kids. Oh, this person had all this bad thing happen. They're doing something wrong. But there's more to that than just looking at these things from the exterior. I think that's how we participate. And that's the net. Drew?
Yeah, I really like that metaphor of the Big Bang and the expansion. And the thing that I thought about in terms of that is when the universe was expanding, it only was possible for life to exist once the universe expanded so much that empty space was created. When it was expanding and it was still just completely full of matter all packed together, it wasn't possible for there to be any life. But once it expanded so much that there was emptiness inside of it, that's when life was able to exist. What Oscar was talking about at the beginning about when you look at the table, when you get right down to it, it's just 99.999% empty space. And like other verses in the Tao Te Ching say, it's only the emptiness that makes something useful. A cup is only useful when it's empty. A house is only useful when there's emptiness inside it. All these things are tying together for me today.
Good, good. And you would see things that appear to be a negative, like burning underbrush in a forest. Used to, lightning strikes would burn the underbrush in a forest and keep the forest healthy. We stopped doing that, so what do we have now? We have forest fires, much more than what they happened naturally in the past, because we don't allow the undergrowth to be cleaned, because we built houses all in these areas and you can't do it. So what would seemingly be a bad thing, a fire in the forest, is in reality, as far as the forest is concerned, is a good thing. Or at least that's the way I understand it. Yeah, this expansion of the universe is continually going, and there was one big bang. There's only one moment. Just like we can't judge the universe as being good or bad as comparing it to another, because there's not another. We're part of that in this one moment. I think the Buddhists say that happens 60,000 times per second, whatever that's their saying about it. Quickly, it's happening all the time. But if we look at a fixed moment, there's no other moment to compare it to, because we're part of that instant in the universe. So when I take this moment and I say, this is a bad moment, compared to what? There's never been another December 7th, 2024, 10:11 and 55 seconds, 56. There's never been another one of those. And it's gone and there's another one. So I can't compare this to anything else. But what I want to do is sit in my fear and compare, so that I can either make, through my innate abilities, put meaning to something that makes me artificially feel good or artificially feel bad. That's my judgment of the moment. Animals don't need this because they're already in the moment. They stay in the moment. My dog, if I ask him to do something, I give him an immediate treat. He'll do it for the treat. But if I give him a treat so that I can wash his ears so that he doesn't itch later in the day, he never wants to do that, because he doesn't understand that he's going to feel better in the future. But now, if it's momentarily, if it's right now, he'll do it. So he doesn't like it. I have to go through the whole rigmarole. He can never see that it's in the future. It's not immediate. And I'm so much the same way, that he can only judge the moment as, I don't like this stuff in my ear, not accepting it and moving forward. He wants to fight every time. I guess that's a little negative issue with being in the moment. But we can take it a step further. And if we can accept it, doesn't mean we've got to enjoy it, but we can be there without fight, without the striving, Drew, that we were talking about earlier.
Thriving instead of striving.
Yes, the correct bold action in harmony with virtue, not bold action against others. That leads to death, but harmony leads to life. That's what we're talking about the expansion. That's it in 2 lines. Bold action against others leads to death. Bold action in harmony with the Tao leads to life. So which are we want to do in more moments of the day? It's what Oscar was talking about. Let's take action in harmony with the Tao. How do I do that? Just like we talked about. How can I be helpful in this moment? And then do that the next moment and the next, and before long it becomes automatic, and you realize that you're being helpful more of the day, and that seems to grow and grow. Before long, we realize that I don't think I was unhelpful any time today. That can happen. I think that's the maturity we're talking about. And that means our moments are leading to life, not to death. I have this thing about service. I was doing something one time, and somebody was saying, I appreciate the thing. There's a guy in a nursing home, and I was going to see him on a regular basis in AA. And he said, buddy, I don't know what I would do without you. And I had helped a good bit that year. I came every Friday and so forth and so on. Anyway, I said, Jim, if I wasn't here, God would send someone else. You're the important part of this, not me. Your situation in the nursing home is not about me. I want to make everything about me. This is not about me. It's about you. It's what you needed. So you drew you drew someone to help you. If I wouldn't have been here, someone else would have been drawn to help you. It's like when the student's ready, the teacher appears, or when that kind of a thing, whether it's the student that draws the teacher, it's the person in need that draws the aid, not the person giving the aid that it's the opposite, if that the way I see it. So that way I could keep out of Buddy So Great. At least that time I could keep out of Buddy Was So Great. That I still have to work on. Good conversation today, guys. Thank you. Anything else before we close? Sorry we went over some today, but this has been good.
It's all right. Maybe we needed an extra dose.
Hopefully,
It was
Drew,
as long as it needed to
miss
be.
the pickleball, did you? Did you miss it?
I had, yeah, I'm late, but
Not late. You're right on time.
I'll tell that to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure to tell everybody that.
Tell them about the table. Tell them about the table.
Yeah.
This has no meaning. No, my being late has no meaning.
And then I'm gonna have somebody in a straitjacket with a straitjacket waiting for me outside.
Yeah, here comes the paddy wagon.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good one. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.